Good day, and welcome to Predators Proclivity, where we look at data from the season for the NHL Nashville Predators and make comments upon it. It's been a tough day in the studio already, and my voice is already cracking. It's going to be a little bit of a long day for me here in the studio. I've got some things going on tomorrow that might interfere with my being able to do the recording and update and do all my research for the weekend. And with the first game being at 11:30 Central Time on Saturday this weekend, I am going to record a slightly different podcast. The good news is the two games are on the road. We've been doing a lot of things at home, so I can do a little podcast of a little bit what to expect. I can still take a look with the Islanders and the Rangers and do some of what I normally do. But it'll be a little bit different because of I won't have tonight's game. I won't have, if the Islanders or Rangers are playing, I won't have any of that. So that won't be up to date. So I'll kind of skip over that, but I'll do that later today. Today, also, the anniversary of my first episode in this for this podcast. February 27th of last year, did the first recording. I believe I uploaded it. It says online that it was uploaded on the 29th, which wouldn't make sense because that's the same day as the second podcast. I think probably what happened is, part of the learning process, I had to make some changes to how I named it or, how things were uploaded. And, I did a number of that last year. I had to, part of the learning process, forget to number the podcasts and stuff. So, like anything, jumping into something the first time, you're going to make mistakes. So, but anyway, so today is the anniversary. This is the 75th episode. I did 32 episodes last season, which included a couple in the off season to cover the history of the NHL and a little bit of the recent last 30 years of awards and the what I thought was East Coast bias and turned out to be pretty much Atlantic Division bias, the Atlantic Division minus Florida teams with regards to getting an overabundance of awards. So, that was the first season, and now we're in the second season. This is the 43rd episode this year, so 75 total in the last year. So a little bit of a marker. Let's see. The postseason watch. I think the more interesting thing about this is that, March 7th at 3 p.m. Eastern is the trade deadline. And there were two trades yesterday, but both minor leagues players. Nashville traded with Tampa Bay. Nashville sent Anthony Angelo to the Syracuse Crunch and Jesse Ylonen. They said in the article how to pronounce it, but I did it once and skipped over it. Heading to Milwaukee Admirals. And then Minnesota and LA had a trade. Minnesota received forward Tyler Madden, and the Kings are getting defenseman Josef Sacconi. So that's the two minor league trades. Again, the trade deadline is on the 7th, so I think we should be seeing a little bit more activity. And my back's itching. Sorry, I'm trying to scratch my back and continue podcasting, which is maybe a bad plan. But that's what I'm doing. Anyway, so I will. I saw this article on NHL.com when I came into the studio about the The Schenn brothers both getting their 1,000th game in the same season. Luke Schenn playing with the Predators and his brother Braden Schenn, St. Louis Capital. St. Louis Blues captain, and both of them brothers who, I guess there were 8. I think this is the 8th set of brothers that have played, 8th set of brothers to play 1,000 games. But the first time it's happened in the same season. So, which seems weird because the Sedin twins would have done it in the same season, but I guess not. Seems weird, but my whole time watching the Sedin twins, they were always playing for Vancouver and always playing together. And I thought that was the story of their whole career, was that they had to, but maybe that was something that came along lately. I don't care. Not a fan of those two guys. They were good offensive players. I noticed that they didn't play in penalty kill situations, which, you want your best players out there. And I just happened to be talking to a Vancouver fan once and mentioned that. He said, yeah, they tried that. They suck. They suck at power plays, at penalty kills. And, okay, cool. Can't have all the skills, but there you go. So congratulations to the Schenn brothers. Okay, moving on. This is not the Brothers podcast. This is Predators Proclivity. The Predators have a game tonight. Tonight, Winnipeg comes to Nashville for the last game of the season between these two teams. Pretty much sure at this point the Predators are not making the postseason, and it's all but official. So it's the last game of the year versus Winnipeg. So far, the home team has held serve. Nashville won 4-1 here in Nashville to start things off, and then lost 0-3 and 2-5 against Winnipeg. I forget what some of those. Yeah, and let's see. Winnipeg played us in back-to-back situations. Was I thought when we played Winnipeg, here. When we played Winnipeg, we had to play Winnipeg on a Monday and then go to Minnesota the next night. So we played them in a back-to-back. Winnipeg got to 2 of the games were back-to-back for Winnipeg. With Nashville. The first game, they had just played Pittsburgh the previous night and then came to Nashville and lost, beat Pittsburgh and then lost to Nashville, both by a score of 4-1. And then in December, they came to, we met them in, that would have been a cross-border. I need to change that. But Nashville went to Winnipeg, and then the next night, Winnipeg had to be in Colorado. So Winnipeg beat Nashville 3-0, and then went to Colorado and lost 5-2. So that's how that happened. Last year, so this year it's Nashville, then 2 in Winnipeg, and then in Nashville. Last year they alternated away and home, so Winnipeg, Nashville, Winnipeg, Nashville. Nashville won the 2 middle games, one in Winnipeg one in Nashville, one in Winnipeg. And this year, Winnipeg has won the middle 2 games, and so hopefully this year Nashville will bookend the series just like Winnipeg did last year. Lots of similarities going on there. Winnipeg, again, one of the hottest teams in the league. They're 42-14-3 overall, 19-9-0 on the road. They are first in the Central with 73 points. They're 11 points ahead of Dallas, who has played 1 less game. They are the top team in the league, leading Washington, who has played 1 less game by 3. Dallas, whom they are ahead of by 11, is third in the league. So the Central Division doing their part at leading the league. I'm sure NHL Today is only talking about Eastern Coast team. It was, bringing up Dallas and the bias. Last year I remember watching NHL Today on the NHL Network and seeing Mark Messier near the end of the season when Dallas was one of the best teams, almost President's Cup. And they go, gosh, we're not talking. I don't think we've talked about Dallas. No, you haven't, because they're a Western Conference team, and NHL doesn't talk about Western Conferences. They only care about Buffalo, Boston, and what was the other team? Buffalo, Boston, and Toronto, I think. Three teams that I don't think it's Toronto, but three teams that get an inordinate number of trophies. And then wound up, not getting any last year. But just despite my research. But yeah, anyway, so Dallas is third in the league right now. Winnipeg, we're not playing Dallas, we're playing Winnipeg. Winnipeg has the best home record in the league and the second best road record. Washington has that. No surprise, given that they are one of the better teams in the league. They're going to have a good record. They have to have a good record, at least in one of them, and you can't be the top team in the league and have a bad record either on the road or home, I guess. So that was kind of interesting to look at, but not terribly surprising. For Winnipeg, this is a 2-game road trip and a cross-border back-to-back. They played in Ottawa last night, winning 4-1. They are one of the few teams that did not come back to the break with a back-to-back, but they are playing one now. They got to play on Saturday and then Monday. Whatever. I mean, it's a schedule. But they are one of the few teams, but they are the team that has played the fewest back-to-backs. This is their sixth. Before this one, they played 5. St. Louis and Vancouver are the two teams that have played 6. Coming up this, on contrast, I don't think Nashville has played the most, but this weekend when they play the two New York teams, it will be the 11th back-to-back of the season. And again, looking at these types of things, having the most back-to-backs or the least back-to-backs doesn't always mean everything. It's all a combination of factors. So that's not real surprising, but back-to-backs are tough situations, and Vancouver has played half of what the situations where Nashville has. So not really why Nashville is in the place that they're at, but, it's a season. It's a season-long deal, and little bitty things can make a big difference. Winnipeg has won all of their games since the break, which is 3, and they won 8 going into the break. So, yep, they're 10-0 in their last 10. This 11-game winning streak is the longest winning streak this year by any team, and it's the longest winning streak in team history, which I was surprised to see. I went and looked at the records and did not see Winnipeg. They kind of capped it at 10. I guess if you don't have a winning streak, if you have a winning streak less than 10, they don't record it, at least on their website, the NHL record website. I guess that's not surprising. There are a lot of 10, but yeah, the first time that Winnipeg had a 10-game winning streak, and now it's 11. So congratulations to them. We'll get a little bit into that later. After tonight, they go home to play Philadelphia, and then back on the road for 4, back in the U.S. To play the Islanders, Philadelphia Flyers. Thank you. The Flyers, the Devils, and the Hurricanes. So New York, Philadelphia, New Jersey, and then Carolina after tonight. After tonight, they go back to play Philadelphia and then go on the road and play Philadelphia again, but not back-to-back, but within a few days of each other. And so that is Winnipeg. Notable personnel changes. They've got one person on injured reserve, center Morgan Barron. Didn't see any notable stats. Their goaltender, Capo Kakkonen, was sent down to the Manitoba Moose. He didn't have any stats, but I guess they brought him up. And ex-LA King, number 28 center Jarrett Anderson Dolan was recalled from the Manitoba Moose. And that makes their roster at least 4 ex-Kings that I noticed just looking at the records. Anderson, Dolan, Velarde, who we'll talk about later. So I thought that was kind of interesting. Well, I thought that was interesting. Those of you who might be new to the program, my heart is still in L.A. I lived in L.A. for 5 years. Before moving to L.A., I was just a general hockey fan. Traveled a lot, and my thing to do when I traveled was to go to a hockey game. One of my routines. And when you travel a lot, you've got to have different. You've got to come up with a scheme of how you're going to manage it, or your diet goes to hell and your health goes to hell. And I said it once, I guess I'll say it twice. Sorry about that. I apologize for the language, but you got to come up with your routines. And one of my routines was going to hockey games, minor league, major league, whatever. And so I went to the Shark Tank, and I lived in San Francisco for a couple of years. Didn't go to the see a game while I lived there. Just when I visited one time, and I saw a game in St. Louis and a few games in Utica because a friend of mine lives in that area, and I used to go visit him every year. And so I've been to a number of games. Then moved to L.A., became an L.A. Kings fan. I've been an L.A. Kings fan for over 20 years. And was at Game 6 when they won the first Stanley Cup. So it was very exciting. But I'm here in Nashville now, and pulling for the Preds. Not over the Kings yet. As I said before, I expect that to change once Andrzej Kopitar and Drew Doughty retire. Jonathan Quick's my wife's favorite player of all time. She actually got to see Gretzky. She lived in L.A. before I did. Got to see Gretzky play at the Forum. She has been a Kings fan longer than I. But I think that once those guys retire, Robitaille. That's the guy I was trying to remember in the last podcast. Robitaille. Never got much out of Robitaille as a player. I was there at the end of his career. It seemed like he just skating around getting accolades, and wasn't as vital of a player. I mean, he was the captain at the time because the Jim Rob Flake, had scampered off to Colorado to try to win a Stanley Cup and abandoned the Kings as a captain. And now the two of those guys are running the team. Robitaille, I don't mind, as I think he's GM and Flake is the president. But Rob, I just, no. Anyway, this isn't Kings Talk. That's another show in L.A. Was pretty good. Is still pretty good. So I have a lot of history with the L.A. Kings, and so I like seeing Kings players. I wish the Kings team, not Blake the Flake, good luck. Like to see them playing well. But now we're becoming more and more Predators fans. And so I'm sure at some point in time I'll start recognizing Predators players on other teams and pulling for them too. So, we'll see how that goes. But anyhow, I just had to notice that Anderson Dolan got called up. I'm like, oh. And then, Gabe Velarde, one of the better team players on Winnipeg's team. So we'll be talking about him later. Also an ex-King. So there you go. That's your Kings talk for the day. With the Rangers coming in town, you're going to get a little bit of Jonathan Quick from me because he is my all-time favorite goaltender and deserved more accolades than he got. But hey, he played for a Western Conference team speaking of the analysis regarding the NHL awards, kind of my annoyance that he never won the, I'm losing my mind today, but the trophy for the best goaltender, it'll come to me later, sorry. And those are kind of why I went through and did it. And, it's one of those things, it's like, is there a bias or is there not a bias? And that was the thing that that I wanted to understand. And the thing that also gets me about that particular trophy is, this is so bad, is that it's awarded it's determined to have, or who votes on it, I guess is what I'm trying to say, is the general managers. And so you would think that that Vezina Trophy, the Vezina Trophy, you'd think that it would be that there would be no bias between conferences or teams or something like that, because it's awarded by the GMs, and that the GMs in the Western Division or Western Conference would have as much sway as the Eastern Conference. But over the 30 years period that the 30-year award period, because there was a year that the NHL did not have a season, which was not during COVID. It was a different time because of a player strike. Well, an owner lockout. Anyway, so there was not a year. So it did not include last year, but the 30 award years previous to that, 25 of those years, the Vezina Trophy, the best goaltender trophy, was given to an Eastern Conference team. And so only 5 times was given to a Western Conference team. And of those 30 years, 12 of those years, the Western Conference won the Stanley Cup. So they had good teams, but they did not win the Vezina Trophy. So that was one of the more egregious. There were some the awards, I would say, did not have any particular bias. But the ones handed out by the media sure did. It was like I said, it was like Buffalo, Detroit, and Boston. I think Buffalo, Detroit, and Boston win an inordinate number of trophies over that time period. Buffalo, speaking of the Vezina Trophy, Buffalo won it a lot because of, oh my gosh, and I'm not going to come up with his name, because they had that one goaltender, and he won the Vezina Trophy like 6 times. And my analysis was, well, yeah, he should have won it. He could have won it 6 times. I didn't think those 6 years were particularly the years he should have won it. 2 of them were, but I think the other years it could have been somebody else. And but anyway, so it kind of seemed weird that Buffalo would be one of those teams that won an inordinate, because why would they be biasing towards Buffalo? Detroit, Boston, I thought the New York teams would, but it was not. Anyway, if you want more on that, go back to the end of last season, and where I really get into it. Like I said, it was a 2-part podcast. In order to determine what time period to do the analysis, I went back and I looked at the history of the NHL going back to the 1800s, and did my research on, when the teams came in and when we were playing and when the trophies came in and that type of thing, and what the trophies were about. And so that's how I came up with the time span. And then I had so much information, and I wanted people to understand why I selected the time span. So I said, okay, fine, we'll do a 2-part here. The first part will be a history of the NHL, which kind of leads up to an explanation of why I picked the 30 years that I did. And then the second podcast goes into the results of my analysis of the different trophies. So NHL Trophy Talk. It's over. Okay, so tonight the Nashville Predators play the Winnipeg Jets. The Nashville Predators are 20-30-7. They are 14-12-3 at home. They are 7th in the Central Division with 47 points. They are 6 points ahead of Chicago, who's played one more. They are now 13 points behind St. Louis, who has played two more. This is the 4th of 4 at home. They are 1-2 in this series. After tonight, they go on the road for 3 games, starting with the 2 New York teams back-to-back. The Islanders, 12:30 Eastern, 11:30 Central, on Saturday. And then Sunday, they play the Rangers at 7 p.m. Eastern, 6 o'clock Central. And then they go to Boston, and they play at 7 o'clock, so. And then they come back home to Seattle. They come back home and play Seattle, but we'll get to that later. Notable personnel changes. Jankowski is out again. He's expected back today. Nothing on that yet. Yossi is also listed as day-to-day. Herrera is out till March 4th. And those are the new ones. Willsby and Lazan are out for the season, but that's not new. The Preds, okay, stats. All right, this is where we start getting into some numbers. I kind of got disappointed that they gave up the power play goal in the first period the other night. That was the first time. First time this season they had given up a power play goal in the first period, but so that's still pretty good because that's only 2% of the time. So one goal in 54 opportunities in the first period. They're going up against. I can't even remember who they're playing tonight. Oh, my brain is just not turned on yet. Winnipeg, one of the better power play teams. They've hit a lot of really good power play teams recently. But the Preds' home stats. So at home, we'll start with the first goal. If they get the first goal, they are 9-4-3. If they do not, they're 5-8. If the first goal happens in the first period and the opposition gets it, the Preds are 2-6. So it's a 3-1 advantage for the opponents to get the first goal in the first period. The Preds, if they get it in the first period, are 9-3-3, so a little bit of an advantage, 3-1 of winning in regulation, I guess. Oddly enough, if the first goal happens in the second period, the Preds are 3-2 when the other team gets it. So if the first goal is in the second period and the opposition gets it here in Nashville, the Preds are 3-2. They are 0-1 when they get it in the second period here at home. Winning is strange. Winning by period, I didn't cover that yesterday. The Preds are 13-6-10. In the first period at home this year, 9-14-6 in the second, 13-12-4 in the third. So a losing record for sure in the second period. As I say, the thing that really matters there is how that correlates. And at home, if the Preds win the first period, they are 9-4. So, if they win the first period, if they lose it, they're 1-5, and if they tie it, they're 4-6. So the tying is close to a 4-6. I mean, I guess that's still a little bit of an advantage for the other team. If they lose the first period, 1-6. Again, not very many data points, just trends. 9-4. I mean, overall. We've got enough data points to say that this is significant, but the individual results, not necessarily. When they win the second period, they're 8-1. If they lose the second period, they're 3-11. And if they tie the second period, they're 3-3. So again, kind of a coin flip But overall, the second period is not their best in a lot of different ways. In the third period, if they win the third period, they're 12-1. And again, I like to take the empty nets out and consider how they play without the goaltender pulled. And in that case, they're 8-1 when they win the third period. Taking out the empty nets changes the number of wins, losses, and ties, but so that's why the numbers don't add up to be the same. If they lose the third period without the empty nets, they're 2-8. With the empty nets, they're 1-11. And the ties, if they tie the third period, counting empty nets, it's 1-3, and not it's 4-6. So that's I think that's it's kind of interesting to say, okay, yeah, the Preds, they're 13-6-10 on in the first period, but what does that mean overall? And winning a period, it definitely helps in winning the game. If you don't win any periods, you're not going to win any of the games. Also, so taking a look at how things happen between the first and the second period, I'll take a look at home, which is kind of interesting because if they win the first, win the second, they're 5-0-0. Not really surprising. If you win two periods, in 98% of the cases, you will win the game. That happened once last season and twice this year, where the Preds won two periods and lost two periods, and those games went to overtime. Last year, they won that game. This year, they've lost both times that happened. The way that I think both of those games wound up, the first and second periods, the losing team scored one goal. The winning team then came back in the third period, scored two goals, and then went to overtime and won. So that's how you can win two periods and lose. But in general, if you win two periods, you win the game. So the 5 times that the Preds have won the first and won the second have all been at home. They have not done that on the road, which is kind of surprising. See one of these scenarios where 0 comes up and it kind of makes you wonder. So if they tie the first and then they win the second, that's happened twice here at home, and they're 2-0. They lose the first, win the second, that's happened twice, and they're 1-1. So some of the things that's not surprising. They lose the first, they lose the second, they're 0-3. Lose the first, tie the second, they're 0-1. If they tie the first and tie the second, they're 1-1. But yeah, anytime that there's a lose in those equations tends to increase the number of losses. I guess again that's not terribly surprising, but anyway, so that's the win-losing of the periods, and those of you that may not understand that, that's just taking a look at the period and saying, okay, in this period, who scored more goals? Did the Preds score more? Was it a tie? Did the Preds score the least goals? And then how does that? And so that's the win-loss record for that period. And so then the thing that really becomes interesting is whether or not it correlates to a victory. Taking a look at the winning goals, the winning goal, as I think I mentioned last time, has started to slip into the third period. Originally, it was the second period most of the season, and then we hit like the middle of December, and it started to move, and so now it has moved a little bit more towards the third period. Overall, we're looking at home, the home record, 34% of the time, the winning goal has been scored in the third period. Second most is the second period at 24. 21% in the first, which is pretty high. The interesting stat from last year was that on the road, when the opponents won last year, they never scored the winning goal in the first period, which seems rather strange. But that's the 0% there. That 65% in the second, so that was really high. So at home, 34% of the time, the winning goal is being scored in the third period. If the Preds win 43% of the time, they're scoring the winning goal in the third period. The opposition is a third in the second, with 27% in the third. So kind of close between the second and third. But the Preds 43% in the third period, really kind of pulling that number for the overall down. The other thing I've been looking at is when the home team wins versus when the opponents win. And the home team wins this season. It's been fairly close between the second and the third, 33% of the time in the second, 31% in the third. When the road team wins 43% of the time, it's in the second period. So there you go. That's the that is when the winning goal is being scored. And if anybody's confused about what the winning goal is, say Nashville, say tonight Winnipeg scores 1 goal, and that's their total, and Nashville scores 4. The winning goal is the second goal because that's the goal that is higher than the total of the other team. So that's what the winning goal is. And so you really don't know when the winning goal was scored until the game is over because you don't know how many goals the losing team is going to score. Or the winning, that's really the determinant. You don't know how many winning team is going to score either, but as far as when the winning goal, the only thing that matters is how many does the losing team score. So, as far as scoring goals, looking at home, the Preds have an advantage in scoring goals in the first period. They're outscoring their opponents 28-21. They are behind in the second period, 24-34. And then the third period is close to being even, 32-33. I do like to take out the empty net goals just to see how they're doing, with the goaltender is in. The Preds have, here in Nashville, the Preds have 10 to the opponent's 8. So the taking out empty net goals, the Preds are being outscored in the third 22-25. Overall, that's, I guess, not too bad. You'd like to see that to be better. When the Preds win here in Nashville, they're outscoring the opponents 15-7 in the first. When they lose in the first period, they're close to even, 13-14. And in the second, when they win, they're outscoring their opponents 16-12 in the second, which again is not a big differential. When they lose, they're being outscored 22-8 in the second period. And when they lose here in Nashville, they're being outscored in the third period 25-6. Now when they win here in Nashville, they're outscoring the opponents 26-8. Again, they've got 10 empty net goals, but it's still 16-8. The third period really here in Nashville really swings wildly towards whoever's winning or whoever's going to win. Which is that's the other thing that I came up with the other day. The difference in goal scoring. Taking a look at how, given the Preds winning or tied or losing the game, how do they score in the second and third period? So when they come into the first period, of course, the game is tied. Whatever the scoring is what the scoring is. But so when the Preds are winning in the second period, they're being outscored by their opponents. Basically, in the second period, in every scenario, they are being outscored by their opponents. If they're losing, if they're tied, if they're winning, they get outscored by their opponents. They're I keep looking for a scenario under which they outscore their opponents in the second period. I'm having trouble finding it. I guess not surprising. In the third period, if they're winning, they are outscoring their opponents 15-8. If they're winning, they're outscoring the opponents 15-8, but 8 of those are empty net goals, so they're actually being out without the empty net goals. They're being outscored by their opponents 7-8. If they're tied in the third period, they're being outscored 5-8, and if they're losing, they're outscored by their opponents 12-17. Now, removing the empty net goals from that scenario too gets kind of interesting because the Preds that have come into the third period losing and have won the game, and they've got an empty net goal. The opposition has 6 goals in those scenarios when the Preds were losing coming into the third period. So it's actually even, taking out the empty net goals, at 11. It's just the opposition has gotten 6 empty net goals to the Preds 1. In the tied situation, coming into the third period tied, the Preds have 1 empty net goals to the opponent's 2, so the 5-8 becomes 4-6. But like I said, they are pretty much in just about every scenario you can think of being outscored. Not surprising given what their goal scoring is like, but there you go. I guess looking back at the special teams. For most of the season, actually, the Preds have had an advantage of power play goals, scoring more power play goals. That used to be a big delta, and now it's overall it's even. And here in Nashville, they do have an advantage of power play goals, 19-15, evenly spread between the periods 7, 6, and 6. Interesting thing at home. The Preds have not gotten that many opportunities on the power play in the third period. 30% of the time they score, which is a really nice percentage. 30% of the time when they get a power play in the third period at home, they score. Now, that's awesome. 17% of the time they do it in the second period, which is not so great, given that that's when they've had the most opportunities. They've had 36 opportunities in the second period. They've only scored on 6 of them. In the third period, on 20 opportunities, 6 goals. And then, like I said, 7 goals in the first period with 27 opportunities. That 1 goal they gave up the other night in the first period in a power play. Very sad. The only power play having been given up by the Preds in the first period, that was at home. And that was the 1 opportunity out of 22, 1 goal out of 22 opportunities. So that's 5%. Is rounded. It's 4 something, but 5%. We'll call it 5%, and that's still great. They've given up the most in the second period, which is not surprising. They've only given up 15 power play goals on 83 opportunities here in Nashville. They have also had 83 opportunities and scored 19 goals. That's so that, I guess, there you go. That is the scenario where they do outscore the other team, is overall in on the power play. All right. For the matchups, how tonight the who are they? The Winnipeg Jets come into Nashville and closed that, and I didn't want to close that. So what can we expect? So as far as goal scoring, Winnipeg has scored 211 goals this year. They got 4 last night. In the win, 1 was an empty net, but I don't track empty net goals on opponents. That's just a little bit too much work for me. They are second in the league in scoring. The bulk of that coming in the third period. They have 83 goals in the third period, which is tops in the league, and is 6 goals more than the second place teams of Washington and Vegas. 6 goals more than the next team. They have scored 57 in the first and 64 in the second, so they're still the top 10 teams in the first and second, but they're definitely come on strong in the third. Where do they give up goals? Well, they are the stingiest team in the league. They're 32nd in the league in goals against with 139, which is only 7 less than the Preds have scored all season. They give up 36. They've given up 36 in the first, 43 in the second, and 57 in the third. So again, the trend is, in this team, that the third period is where more scoring occurs. They are 31st in the league in the first and second period in goals against, and 23rd in the third. So they are one of the toughest teams to score against, which makes you kind of wonder, because the Preds are 31st in the league in scoring. They are 24th in the first, 28th in the second, and 30th in the third. So they don't score a lot in the third period. It is where they've scored most of their goals, but it's pretty even for the Preds, 46, 47, 51. And then, if you take out the empty net goals, then it's their lowest, the lowest period for scoring for the Preds. Goals against, the Preds are 9th in the league and being scored on with 189 goals scored against, 48 in the first, so they are 19th in the league, which is pretty good. They're in the bottom half of the league as far as being scored against in the first period. The second period is where they give them up. The 70 goals puts them 6th in the league in goals against, and then they drop back down to middle of the pack with 64 in the third, and so they're 17th in the league and of being scored against in the third period. So the Preds definitely have a problem in the second period, giving up goals. You can't say that Winnipeg has a problem scoring, but Winnipeg, if they're going to give up goal, more likely in the third period, and the Preds aren't very good at scoring in the third period. So it'd be an interesting matchup. The Preds have beaten Winnipeg this year, and it hadn't been the best season for the Preds, and they beat them early. So doesn't mean, you got to play the game, right? Penalty situations. In the penalty kill, Winnipeg and Nashville are two of the better teams in the top half. Nashville is 10th in the league. Winnipeg is 14th. Nashville, let's start with Winnipeg, is 79.6%, it's 14th in the league, 31 goals against and 152 opportunities. Nashville being 10th in the league, 80.5%. They've been dropping. They were, like the top team for the longest time. Terrible record, but a good power penalty kill. I think it was, they were crediting Evangelista for being one of their better penalty killers, and him being injured as part of the reason why this has declined. It's what, if I heard that correctly the other day. The Preds have given up 33 goals against and 169 opportunities, so the number of goals against is similar. You have to say their penalty kills are probably very close. There's a few percentage points away from each other. When it comes to the power play, though, Winnipeg has the best power play in the league. They're the number one scoring team, and they are the number one power play team, 31.7%. 51 goals on 161 opportunities, so roughly about 1 of every 3. So you really don't want to commit a lot of penalties here against them. If you compare that to the Preds are 20th in the league on the power play at 20%, 1 in 5. They have 33 goals on 162 opportunities. So the Winnipeg and Nashville have had almost the same number of opportunities, 161 to 162, but Winnipeg has scored 18 more goals, so better than 50% more goals than Nashville. So you don't want to be on the power play. You don't want to be on the penalty kill against them, even though Nashville's penalty kill is pretty good. So how did the other guys? I started taking a look at this. I'm like, okay, obviously we beat Winnipeg, and they're a really good team, and they've got really good numbers at this point in time in the season. Anyway, so what happened in each game? Well, in the first game, Nashville won that game, and they got 1 goal in the first period and 3 goals in the third period. Now, let's go back and remember that in goals against in the third period, Winnipeg is 23rd in the league. That's when they've given up the most of them. So that kind of follows what they gave up 1 goal in the first and 3 in the second. And in the other games, Nashville scored, well, they got blanked in the second game, and then in the third game, they only scored 1 goal, and that was in the second. And then of the 3 goals in the win, 1 was an empty net. Winnipeg, in the first game, scored 1 goal, did that in the second period, no surprise. In the second game, also, they scored 1 in the second period and 2 in the third. So, I guess that's also not surprising. And then in the third game, they got 3 in the first, none in the second, and then 2 in the third. Not real surprising when they're scoring against the Preds, but the Preds, kind of in the first game here in Nashville, they were able to score 3 against Winnipeg in the third period. So that kind of makes sense. As far as the special teams goes, in the first game, Winnipeg did get what I call a just after goal. And it was just after 4-4. So there was a coincidental minor situation, and within a minute of that ending, Winnipeg did get a goal. Those of you that might be new, just after for me, I guess it's called a continuation. I like when there's a special team situation, if there's a goal scored within a minute afterwards, then I call it a just after goal and record it to kind of track those types of things, because you can get a lot of momentum from a special team situation. If you're on the power play or penalty kill, and in the first game, Winnipeg's goal was just after a 4-4 in the second period. Second period. Nashville got a power play goal in the third period in an empty netter. Both teams had 3 opportunities, so on the power play. So we kind of dodged a bullet there. In the second game, the Preds committed 2 minor penalties fairly close together, and so Winnipeg was on a 5-on-3 situation and then scored a goal on the 5-on-3 and then scored a goal on the 5-on-4 situation 15 seconds apart. So they got 2 goals right there in the third period on the power play. So that kind of shows what they're going to do. They had 6 opportunities to the Reds 2, and then in the third game, they got a power play, a 5-on-4 opportunity, and scored a power play. And then the third period, and the Preds got a power play goal in the second period, which is, scoring in the second period is not really the Preds' forte. All right, so that's how the teams match up. What are we going to see in the goal crease? Well, this is going to be kind of interesting. I shudder to say anything. But let's talk about the goaltenders. Connor Hellebuyck for Winnipeg, 35-7-2, is the starter. Eric Comrie is 6-7-1. Hellebuyck plays about 3 games to Comrie's 1. In the games this year, Comrie was in goal in the first game, which was a 1-4 loss for Winnipeg. Was part of a road back-to-back, and with Hellebuyck winning against Pittsburgh. So Nashville was the second game of that back-to-back, both of them on the road. And the other two games, Hellebuck was in goal for the other two, which were both wins, 3-0 and 5-2. The first game was a home and away back-to-back where Nashville, they played Nashville at home, then went to Colorado. So again, Hellebuck won, and Comrie was in goal for the loss, the 5-2 loss to Comrie. And in all of the back-to-backs, they have all been split. They have not won both games of a back-to-back, and all of the losses have been with Comrie in goal. So what happened last year? Last year, Brossoit was in goal for the first game versus Nashville, or for the first two games, which was a 6-3 win, 6-3 win in Winnipeg and a 2-3 loss in Nashville. And then Hellebuck was in goal for the last two, which was a 4-2 win for the Nashville and Winnipeg. And I think I got that wrong. And 3-2, 4-2 in Winnipeg, which was a win for Nashville, and 3-4 overtime loss. Nashville won the middle two games, right? Yeah. Sure, I got that backwards. But anyway, so Hellebuck was in goal for the last two, so he was 1-1. Brossoit was in goal for the first two. He was 1-1. Last year, Comrie played for Buffalo, and he lost 2-4 for Buffalo in Nashville last year. As far as what they have been playing recently, since the break, Comrie did play the first game after the break, a 4-3 shutout win in St. Louis, and then Hellebuck was in goal last night versus Ottawa. So therefore, I expect to see Comrie in goal tonight. And I've said it once. I'm not going to say it again. So we'll see Comrie in goal tonight. As for the Nashville Predators, UC Saros is 12-24-6, and he plays 2 or 3 for Justus Anninen's 1. Anninen is 7-4-0. This year, Saros has been in goal for all the games versus Winnipeg, and last year, Saros was in goal for all 4 versus Winnipeg. And last year for Colorado, Annunen did not play versus Winnipeg. Colorado was 0-3 against Winnipeg last year. And then with the back-to-back coming up this weekend, Annunen's going to be playing one of those. So, Annunen was in goal versus New Jersey on Sunday. So, definitely. Saros in goal tonight versus Winnipeg. Momentum, Winnipeg has won their last 11. They are the longest. What can you say? They've won their last 11. Comrie is in goal tonight, and it's a back-to-back. That's enough of that. Nashville has lost their last 2, and they're 2-8 in their last 10. So both teams definitely going in different directions this season. Who are you going to watch for tonight? Top of the list, number 55, center Mark Scheifele. Now, Scheifele is first in goals at 33. He's second on the team in shooting shots with 130, but he's first on the team in shooting percentage, 25.4%. So 130 shots, 33 goals. There's nothing about this team that is not dangerous. The other guy to look out for, number 13 center, Gabriel Velarde. He's another ex-King. He's second on the team. I got asterisks by these because they've got 2 players who are actually playing for the minor league team that have come up, and their shooting percentage is higher. One is 50%, but it's like 1 goal on 2 shots, and the other guy's similar. So So for their regular players, Velarde's second on the team with 22.8%, and I did not note the number of shots, but just to let you know how good that is, I did a search for players that had played more than 15 games. What I really wanted to weed out was players that had less than 15 shots, and I thought I had seen where I could filter that, but you can't filter out on the number of shots. I swear I did that before, but sorting it or weeding out or sorting by not sorting, but filtering by players who have played more than 15 games also takes out those that have only had 15 shots. And Scheifele is second in the league with shooting percentage. So that's how good that is. And Vilardi is eighth. The other person to watch out for, number 81, left wing Kyle Connor, he's first in the team in assists and first in points and first in number of shots, third in the team and shooting percentage at just 16%, but it's at 193 shots. It's 31 goals. So that's still pretty dangerous. But you can't, I don't even have Forsberg's shooting percentage. You consider the top on the team for the Preds is 15%, and that's Svechkov. So the top three guys on Winnipeg are all higher than anybody on Nashville, and their top two are the top 10 in the league, with Vilardi being eighth and Scheifele being second. Now, Vilardi was fifth, but last night I don't think he scored, so his percentage went down a little bit. And then second in assists and top in time on ice is defenseman Josh Morrissey. 23 minutes and 58 seconds time on ice, so you'll see him on the ice, number 44. The other interesting thing about Scheifele is that he is the forward with the most time on ice, 20 minutes and 20 seconds. So those are your players to watch. Number 55, Scheifele, 81, Connor, and 13, Vilardi. So 13, 55, 81. For the Nashville Predators, I kind of been skating through this and then thought, well, some of the people listening to the show might be the opponents trying to get a little bit of information. Why they'd be listening to me, I don't know. But I thought, well, maybe I'm doing them a disservice by just skating through. So for the Preds, the guy to look out for is number 9, Philip Forsberg, left wing Philip Forsberg, first on the team in goals, assists, and points, 21, 32, and 53. He's also first on the team in shooting and shots, 205. The second on the team in most stats is number 81, right wing Jonathan Marchessault. He's second in goals and third in assists, second in points, 18, 27, 45. And second in team in shooting and shots with 168. The defenseman you'll see on the ice most of the time is the captain, number 59, defenseman Roman Josi, leads the team in ice time with 25:01. Third on the team in shots with 150. Third in the team in assists, or third in the team in points with 38. Second in assists with 29. The forward that you'll see most of the time on the ice is number 90, Ryan O'Reilly. He's third in time on ice with 18:52. Third on the team in shooting percentage at 14. He's got 14 goals on 100 shots. And then, of course, number 91, center Steven Stamkos, who's third in goals, fifth in assists, fifth in points. Fourth in shooting, second in shooting percentage at 14.1%. As I mentioned, number 40 center Fedor Svechkov does lead the team in shooting percentage. He's getting a little bit more playing time, and his shooting percentage is coming down. He was over 20%. He's got 6 goals on 38 shots, to 15%. So if you're looking for players to watch for the Preds, definitely number 9, 81, and 91 are the guys to look for. And I think they pretty much play on the same line these days. Stamkos and Marchessault are new to the team, and they've bounced them around trying to figure out how to get them to play. And I kind of think, unfortunately, that they've wound up all on the same line. It worked out a little while in December, but now we're kind of back to the same situation. So that's the players to watch for the Preds. Anyway, so that'll do it today. Longer than I thought. As I said, I'm going to have to go do the research for the weekend games and try to get that out today. Thanks for listening. I'm Preston Proctor, and you've been listening to Predators Proclivity.